Hi and welcome to this L8MS Risk tutorial. This tutorial covers control scheme, building a control scheme, editing a control scheme and customizing control schemes. I'm going to assume as always that you've logged in, and in this instance we're inside a risk assessment looking at the overview screen. Okay, the first thing to notice, there are two views available to do with the control scheme. The lower of the two, the control scheme view, is, as it says, a view of the control scheme, and we haven't built one yet, so unsurprisingly it's empty. Now the control scheme should be built after you've put in the asset register and all of your surveys, because it uses the information you've collected in the asset register and in the surveys to recommend a control scheme strategy. And historically, if you click on control scheme admin, you would have had a build button. The build button would have then built you a control scheme which you could then edit. However, a number of clients asked us to extend the functionality so that they could build control schemes slightly differently, control schemes in their own format, if you will. So if we go to L8MS standard, the control scheme that you would be used to building, and hit build control scheme, after a little while of digesting all the data, the system would have found, for example, your infrequently used outlets, listed them up and set them up for weekly monitoring. And you've always been able to click on edit here, and then if you wished to change the information that was in here, you could edit that up, or the location information, hit save, and therefore slightly change the control scheme. But one of the things you weren't able to do was to actually alter the groups that are here, for example sentinel outlets and showers and the like. The actual body of the report in the control scheme was defined by us, and several clients asked if they could bring in their own particular elements. So I'm going to show you now how we've developed the system so that you can do that. And to do this, we have to go back to prior to being logged into a risk assessment, and you'll see there's now a control scheme button here, and this control scheme button is allows us to actually customize control schemes and build control schemes with slightly different sections or grouping. So let's go through now and have a look at how you would build a control scheme. First of all, we've got a list of titles, and I've brought in a demo here. So there's one I've called Oculus's Standard plus Flexi. So that's the standard control scheme, but I've added to it a section for flexible hoses, if there are flexible hoses out there, and you can see it down here listed in item 32. I want to be able to have specific recommendations every time that I find a flexible hose in my asset register. I'm going to show you how that gets put in there, and indeed how you build up control schemes. Now you can build yourself a whole new control scheme, and you can base it on a standard, or you can build it up from scratch. So for the purposes of the demo, let's just say that I was going to use the standard control scheme, and this is how I would have built the Flexi one in, and then I would have typed on the end plus Flexi, and we'll put this in as a demo so you can see the extra one being added in. So from the drop down list, if I go with putting that in as a title for this fella, and we take the standard control scheme, which doesn't have flexi hoses in, and we tell it to add this new standard now for control schemes, which is called standard plus flexi demo, and hit add. So now in the drop down list here I have a L8MS standard plus flexi demo, which I'm going to click on. And these are all the standard control scheme sections in here which you've got set up as normal. If we just go and have a look at, say, the infrequently used outlet one, as we were having a look at that just now, and I hit edit, you can see that this appears second in the list. We are searching the asset register for the search text, the search information, and in this case there is a tick in here to say that it is an infrequently used item, which means it goes and has a look down the infrequently used item column in the asset register where you put in your ones or twos, and adds those in and then builds up the control scheme based around it. So that's the current beastie that's in there, and if we double click on it, you can see that it will open up and tell us what the standard text is that goes in to the infrequently used outlets, and that text itself is even editable as well now. So you're actually in a position where you can edit the recommendation text that you're going to put in, and you can edit the name and the order of the control scheme as it builds. Now I said this was going to be a flexi demo, so I'm going to go right ahead down the bottom here and add into the existing scheme on the end of the scheme 32. I'm going to add in here a search from the asset register, and the search text that I want to look for in the asset register is flexi. This is not to do with being a dead leg, and it's not to do with being an infrequently used outlet, so I'm not going to get it to look at the two dead leg columns or infrequently used outlet columns of the asset register or make recommendations for that. Just to run the search text here, and under system type here, this is the name that you're going to give to the section within the control scheme. So I'm going to put up here flexible hoses. This is going to be called the flexible hoses section, and hit save. And you'll see that now I have flexible hoses added into my standard build for the control scheme. If I double click on that, there's no actual recommended text that's going to go in there, so I'm going to have to say add new. This will be the first item that I want to add. The frequency that I'm going to put in for these flexible hoses, well actually I want them to be removed, so I'm actually going to put in there it's a corrective action as opposed to a frequency, because it's a rather unusual one, this. And then under here in terms of a standard para, I'm just for the case of demonstration going to say get rid of these. Okay, so I'm going to tell people to get rid of them and hit save. Close that down, and if we reopen that window again now, you can see that get rid of these has been added. So now I've added to the standard control scheme that we ran up earlier a new section which will appear in the list. So if I go back to the control scheme here at the moment and we have a look at the control scheme, we've got the standard layout with showers and TMVs and cisterns and tanks and management, but when we get to the end of the list we finish with the other hot and cold outlets. If I go back now to control scheme admin and I select our Flexi Plus demo and tell it to build the control scheme, we will now rebuild the control scheme. But if I go back to the control scheme view and drop all the way down to the bottom here, you'll see that we've now added a section into the control scheme which is called flexible hoses, and it is a corrective action, and we want them get rid of these, and we've got them appearing in our list. It's found one sink with a flexi hose on, located in ground floor B1. I think it's probably worth me just going up to the asset register and showing you that, as usual, what we're doing is looking for a search word, the same as we do with TMVs or other. So as you're probably aware, the system actually hunts for the word TMV, it hunts for the word shower, and then builds up. It hunts for the word sentinel here, and the sentinel of course then drives the sentinel locations. Well, what we've effectively done is I've built an asset register with the word flexi in it here. Here's our sink with the flexi hose, and that is in the type of equipment column of the asset register. And now the control scheme will hunt for the word flexi and add that into the control scheme building. So quite a complicated job to actually customize the system, but once customized you can now run up user specific, if you will, control schemes with modifications to the standard text that comes out for Sentinels if you want to change what we supply you, or to add new items in for surveys and or for things that are on the asset register. We've seen things being added already for things like backflow protection hoses and for scaled outlets, but really it's now up to you. Any word that you want to put into the asset register, once you've put it in there as a keyword in the type of equipment column, you can then build a search, build standard text for it, and see it come out as part of the control scheme. So I hope that covers the items that it needs to for how to build control schemes and put them into our report. Thank you very much.